The white city burns. Ash rides the wind like black snow, choking the cries of the dying, clinging to the marble faces of kings. Towers that once gleamed beneath the sun are veiled in smoke and shadow, their proud banners torn and trampled into blood and mud. On the Pelennor, the thunder of hooves is gone, replaced by the slow grinding march of iron-shod feet. Above it all, on a balcony half-wreathed in flame, a single horn's last broken echo fades into the roar of the enemy as a great gate shudders, buckles, and finally falls. If you love diving into these darker paths of Middle-earth, remember to like and subscribe so you do not miss the next journey. Tell me in the comments which realm you would stand for in this war. Gondor, Rohan, or somewhere far in the north. The city of the kings stands alone, and the hour of its fall comes early. The beacons have burned for days. Rohan has answered, but the world does not move as swiftly as fire on the mountaintops. The muster at Dunharrow takes longer than any had wished. Horses tire, men straggle, and the paths down from the uplands choke with carts and confusion. The Rohirrim ride, but they ride late. In Minas Tirith, there is no time left to wait. Dawn comes grey and choking, veiled by the fumes from Orodruin. The sun rises, but it does not pierce the black pall that Sauron has sent forth. In that false twilight, the hosts of Mordor surge across the Pelennor in their thousands, iron and flesh and monstrous shapes that never knew the light. The first assault has already come and gone. The outer wall of the Pelennor lies broken in many places, shattered by the great engines of the enemy. The Ramas Echor is no more than a ring of smoking stones and splintered wood. The fields between wall and city are torn and trampled, furrowed by siege towers and the wheels of grotesque machines. Corpses lie in heaps, where the sorties of Gondor's knights were driven back and crushed. Within the 7 circles, the bells do not ring. There is no need. Every street hums with the distant impact of stones, the crack of falling masonry, the faint, sickening tremor that runs through the bones of the city whenever Grond strikes the great gate. In the Hall of the Kings, Denethor, son of Ecthelion, sits upon the black stone chair before the empty throne. His eyes are hollowed by sleeplessness and the secret fire that has burned behind them since he last dared the Palantir. In his hands, the steward's white rod lies across his knees, and his fingers close upon it with a slow, unconscious tightening, as if he would shatter it by will alone. He hears the blows upon the gate. He hears the distant shouts of captains, the horns of the tower guard, the rumbling chant of the enemy beyond the walls. He sees something else entirely. The image will not leave him. A white tree, leafless and lifeless, black against a sky of red. A crown falling, tumbling end over end into darkness. A black-sailed fleet upon the river, its banners strange and terrible. He has seen too much and not enough. Pippin stands a little way off, small and still in the mail of the guard, watching the steward with a tightness in his chest that is not only fear. He has seen Denethor's sudden rages, his bitter words. He has seen the brittle pride that hides a despair deeper than any Shire dweller could have imagined. Now he sees something worse, a quietness that looks like surrender. Outside, Grond strikes again. Far below, at the gate, Gandalf sits his horse like a figure carved from living stone. Shadowfax stamps and tosses his head, white mane tossing in the sulphurous air, but his rider is steady. The wizard's staff burns with a cold white light that pushes back the darkness in a small circle, a single star upon a battlefield. Beside him, The last defenders of the gate stand in a ragged line. Men of Gondor, faces grey with exhaustion and dust, shields scarred, eyes red from smoke and grief. Beregond is among them, sword drawn, though his arm trembles with weariness. Above them, the great doors shudder in their iron sockets. "Hold fast," Gandalf says quietly, and though his voice is not raised, it carries to every man upon the wall. "You are not alone." He says it as if he believes it, as if somewhere beyond the choking darkness, beyond the reach of Sauron's will, riders are coming. They are, but they are too far. On the Pelennor, the enemy's hosts draw back momentarily to make room. A great road has been cleared through the press of bodies and war machines, and down it comes the monstrous ram. Grond, hammer of the underworld, carved in the likeness of a wolf's head, its iron jaws smoking with spells of ruin. Trolls strain at the chains that drag it, their massive shoulders bunching, their feet tearing furrows in the blood-soaked earth. Upon the wall, men flinch with every impact as the ram swings. Great cracks spiderweb through the wood and iron of the gate. The hinges scream. Splinters the size of spears fly inward, felling men where they stand. In the hall, Denethor closes his eyes. He sees again the black fleet upon the river. He has misread it, twisted by fear, but he does not know that. He sees only doom. He sees Osgiliath fallen, the Pelennor overrun, the White City encircled by a sea of fire and iron. He sees the Eye. He does not see Rohan. "Hope is gone," he whispers, and the words fall like ash. Pippin takes a step forward. "My lord," he says, voice shaking, "they are still fighting. Gandalf is—" Denethor's head snaps up. "Gandalf," he says, and his mouth curls. Gandalf. Always he meddles. Always he counsels patience, defiance, faith in shadows, faith in a king who is not here. Faith in riders who have not come. He rises, the white rod clattering to the floor. The sound makes Pippin flinch more than any thunder of the ram. "Go," Denethor says. "Go and look, halfling. Go and see what comes of Gandalf's hope." Pippin runs. He runs down echoing corridors that tremble with each blow from outside, past women huddled in doorways, past boys too young for swords clutching spears with white knuckles. He runs until the air grows colder and the light dimmer, until he reaches the houses of the dead. There, upon a bier, lies Faramir. The younger son of Denethor breathes shallowly, sweat beading his brow. His skin is hot and pale all at once, fever burning him from within. The black dart that struck him at the retreat from Osgiliath has left poison in his blood. The healers have done what they can. It is not enough. Pippin looks at him and feels something twist in his heart. Faramir's face, even in fever, is gentler than his father's, and more like the men that Pippin has come to trust. He remembers the ranger in Ithilien who spared his life, and listened to his tale of Boromir's fall with sorrow, not rage. Another boom from outside, louder, closer. Pippin turns as footsteps approach. Denethor strides into the chamber, his robes disordered, his eyes bright with a terrible resolve. Behind him come servants bearing oil and wood. Pippin's breath catches. "No," he says. "No, my lord. You cannot." Denethor ignores him. He gestures sharply, and the servants begin to stack the wood around the bier. "I will not be taken," Denethor says. "I will not see my house dragged in chains before the Dark Lord." The line of stewards ends as it began, in fire. Pippin stares. "He is not dead," he says. "Faramir is not dead. He still breathes. Gandalf." The steward rounds on him. For an instant, Denethor's mask cracks, and Pippin sees the raw grief beneath. "Gandalf," he says again, but this time the name sounds like a plea. Gandalf cannot save him. He cannot save the city. He cannot save any of us. He lifts a torch. Outside, Grond strikes for the last time. The great gate of Minas Tirith explodes inward in a storm of iron and splintered wood. The doors, that had withstood wars and storms for centuries, tear from their hinges and crash to the ground. A rush of black-clad orcs and towering trolls surges forward, shrieking, but they halt, snarling and hissing as a great shadow falls across the breach. The Lord of the Nazgul rides into the city. Upon a monstrous black horse, its eyes like coals, its mane a ragged tangle of smoke, the Witch King passes beneath the arch. His crown gleams faintly, a circlet of cold iron about a form that is more absence than presence. Between helm and mail there is only a void, and from that void comes a voice like the grinding of stones. "Come forth," it says. "Old fool, this is my hour." Gandalf rides to meet him. Shadowfax's hooves strike sparks from the stones as he advances. The wizard raises his staff, and white light flares, pushing the darkness back another pace. For a heartbeat, the square before the gate is a clash of radiance and shadow, two powers meeting in a space no wider than a courtyard. "You shall not enter this city," Gandalf says. "You shall not touch its people, not while I stand." The Witch King laughs, a sound that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Old fool," he says again. "You have seen my master's strength. You have felt his will. What hope have you?" Gandalf does not answer with words. He answers with light. Staff and sword blaze together, a pillar of white fire that meets the black aura of the Witch King in a crackling storm. Men on the walls cry out and shield their eyes. Orcs cower and snarl, torn between fear of the wizard and fear of their lord. For a moment, it seems that the light holds, but this is not the hour that was. On the fields of Rohan, Theoden's riders are still hours away. No horns will sound upon the Pelennor to split the dawn. No cry of "Rohan has come" will shake the courage of Mordor's hosts. The Witch King feels it. He feels the absence of that threat, the unchallenged might of his armies encircling the city. He presses forward. Gandalf's light flickers. On the sixth circle, Pippin runs again. His lungs burn, his legs feel like lead, but terror drives him. Denethor's torch has already touched the wood. Flames lick hungrily along the oiled logs, curling around the bier where Faramir lies. Heat shimmers in the air. Servants fall back, faces pale, some weeping openly. "Help!" Pippin screams, bursting into the courtyard. "Help! The Lord Steward is mad. He will burn his son alive." Beregond hears him. The guard stands at his post, sword drawn, watching the gate where light and darkness clash. He hears the halfling's cry and feels his duty tear in two. The rules of the guard are clear. He must not leave his station without command. He must not draw sword in the hallows. He hears another boom. Another crack, another scream from below. He hears Pippin's voice again, breaking on the word "alive." Beregond makes his choice. He runs. Later, men will say that the fall of Minas Tirith began at many different moments. When Osgiliath fell, when the Ramus was broken, when Denethor first looked into the Palantir. Some will say it began when Beregond turned his back on his post and ran toward the houses of the dead. He bursts into the chamber just as Denethor steps toward the bier with his torch raised high. Fire already climbs the wood, heat hitting Beregond's face like a physical blow. Faramir stirs weakly, a faint sound escaping his lips. Lord Steward, Beregond cries. In the name of the king? There is no king, Denethor snarls. There is only the end. He moves to thrust the torch deeper into the pile. Beregond does something he never dreamed he would do. He raises his sword against his lord. Forgive me, he whispers and swings. The torch flies from Denethor's hand, clattering to the stone, rolling in a trail of fire. Denethor stares at Beregond, incredulous, as if the world has gone mad around him. You dare, he says softly. Servants rush forward, some to seize Beregond, others to pull burning wood away from Faramir. The chamber erupts in chaos. Pippin throws himself at the bier, tugging at the logs with all his small strength, coughing as smoke fills his lungs. Gandalf? He gasps. Where is Gandalf? Gandalf is at the gate, and he is losing. The Witch King's power presses against him like a storm wind. The air around them shrieks and crackles. The stones beneath their feet groan. Shadowfax rears, front hooves lashing at the air, but the black horse of the Nazgul stands firm, its eyes burning with unnatural fire. You are overmatched, the Witch King says. This city will fall. Your hope in the west will wither. The Dark Lord's hand is on your throat, Mithrandir. Gandalf's arm shakes. He has faced Balrogs and dragons, the malice of Morgoth's servants and the long, slow corruption of the world. He has walked in other forms beneath other suns. But he is weary. The long road from the Shire to this moment has cost him more than any mortal eye can see. He thinks of Frodo. In the dark of Mordor, the ring-bearer stumbles. Far away, across leagues of blasted plain and jagged rock, Frodo Baggins climbs another slope of ash. His feet are raw and bleeding, his throat parched. Every breath tastes of dust and sulphur. The weight upon his breast is a living thing now, whispering, demanding. His mind is a battlefield, and he is losing ground with every step. Sam follows, his own breath ragged, his own limbs shaking, but his eyes fixed on Frodo's back. He sees how the ring has bent his master's shoulders, how it has hollowed his cheeks and dimmed his eyes. He sees, and he does not turn away. We are close, Mr. Frodo, he says hoarsely. We must be. We have to be. Frodo does not answer. His lips move, but no sound comes. He sees fire ahead. He feels the eye, searching, searching. For a moment, he falters. On the plain below, the hosts of Mordor surge around the city that still stands. The eye is fixed there, leaning its full will upon the fall of Minas Tirith. Frodo passes like a shadow beneath its notice, sheltered by the very storm that threatens to drown the west. But storms move. At the gate, Gandalf's staff flickers, the white light dimming. The Witch King senses the moment, like a wolf scenting blood. He raises his black blade, and the air around it screams. Old fool, he says for the third and last time. Die now and curse in vain. The sword falls. Shadowfax leaps. The blade that should have struck Gandalf's head bites into the horse's neck. For an instant, time slows. The great stallion's eyes widen, more in surprise than pain. Then blood, hot and bright, erupts in a spray that steams in the cold air. Shadowfax falls. Gandalf is thrown, his staff spinning from his hand, his sword tumbling away. He hits the stones hard, the breath driven from his lungs, pain blazing through his old bones. Around him, men cry out. Orcs howl. The staff rolls to a stop. Its light gutters and goes out. The Witch King looms over him. Black blade rising again. No horn sounds on the horizon. No rider comes. Gandalf looks up into the void beneath the crown and sees not his death, but the sundering of all his labours. He sees Minas Tirith broken, Rohan crushed, the ring-bearer alone under a sky filled with the eye. He sees, and for the first time in many ages, he feels something like despair. So ends the wisdom of the West, the Witch King says. Then he strikes. The blade passes through cloth and flesh and bone, but there is more to Gandalf than that. For an instant, a white shape seems to rise from the fallen body, tall and terrible, as if some greater fire within him flares in defiance. The Witch King recoils, shrieking as that light touches him. It is not enough. Gandalf the White falls still. On the sixth circle, Pippin stumbles, clutching at his chest as if he has been struck. He does not know why. He only knows that the world has changed. The flames around Faramir die down as water is thrown, as burning logs are dragged away. The younger son of Denethor lives barely. His fevered eyes flutter, unfocused. "Faramir," Pippin whispers. "Hold on, please." Denethor stands apart, his face slack, his hands empty. The white rod lies broken at his feet. The servants who had moved to restrain Beregond now hold back, watching their lord with a fear that has nothing to do with swords. Outside, a roar rises from the gate. The orcs surge forward, pouring through the breach over the bodies of the fallen. Trolls batter at the inner doors. Fire arrows arc overhead, trailing sparks to land upon roofs and banners and the dry timbers of the upper circles. Somewhere, a tower bell, cracked by the earlier bombardment, begins to toll wildly and then shatters into silence. Minas Tirith has been entered. Denethor hears it. He lifts his head slowly, like a man waking from a dream. His eyes, when they focus, are no longer mad with sudden decision. They are empty. He looks at Faramir, at Beregond's drawn sword, at Pippin's soot-streaked face. "Too late," he says softly. "Too late for all of us." He turns and walks from the chamber without another word. Pippin makes to follow, but Beregond puts a hand on his shoulder. "Stay," the guard says. "He is beyond our help. Your friend is not." They do not see when Denethor reaches the silent street. They do not see when he enters the house of the stewards alone. They are not there when he takes up oil and torch once more, and this time turns them upon himself only. They do not hear his last cry as the fire takes him. Others do. In the lower circles, the rumour runs like flame on dry grass. The steward is dead. The gate is broken. Gandalf has fallen. The enemy is within the walls. Hope, that fragile, stubborn thing that had clung to the city through the long night, begins to gutter. On the walls, captains shout themselves hoarse, trying to hold their men. Imrahil of Dol Amroth, his Swan Knight banner tattered and blood-stained, rides from breach to breach, his face grim. He has taken command in the chaos, because someone must. His blue eyes scan the horizon, seeking a sign that does not come. "Where is Rohan?" A young soldier gasps, leaning on his spear, blood running from a cut on his forehead. They must be coming. They must. Imrahil looks at him, and for a moment, he almost lies. Almost says that yes, the Rohirrim are near, that they will break the siege, that all they must do is hold a little longer. Instead, he says nothing. He grips the young man's shoulder briefly, then spurs his horse toward the next point of crisis. He hears the shrieks of Nazgul overhead, swooping low over the walls, their fell voices sapping courage. He hears the crash of stone as another section of parapet gives way. He hears the roar of fire as some building within the lower circles catches and burns. The city is becoming a maze of smoke and flame. In the houses of healing, the wounded lie in rows upon the floors, the beds long since filled. The air is thick with the smell of blood and athelas, sweat and fear. Healers move among them like pale ghosts, their hands red, their eyes shadowed. Mothers clutch children. Old men stare at the ceiling, lips moving in silent prayer. A woman named Ioreth, who has seen many things in her long life, wrings her hands as another stretcher is borne in. "If only the king were here," she mutters. "The hands of the king are the hands of a healer," they say. "If only—" There is no king. There is only the enemy, and he is within the walls. On the Pelennor, the camps of Mordor spread like a stain. Siege engines creak and groan as they are hauled closer, ready to batter the inner gates. Orcs set up crude barricades, drag corpses into piles, loot the fallen. Southrons, in red and gold, lead their great Mumakil to new positions. The beasts' tusks stained dark, their eyes rolling. The captains of Sauron gather to confer beneath a black banner. Gothmog, lieutenant of Morgul, deformed and cruel, grins as he looks up at the walls. "The White City falls," he says. His voice is thick, like something crawling. "The Lord of the Nazgul has broken its gate. When the sun is at noon, we will feast in its halls." "There is no sun," a Haradrim captain replies, glancing uneasily at the black sky. Gothmog laughs. "There is only the eye." He does not know that the eye, for all its might, cannot look in two places at once with its full power. It has turned now fully upon Minas Tirith. Its wrath and hunger pour into the assault. Far away, two small figures climb a little higher, unseen. In the mountains above Dunharrow, the Rohirrim ride. Their horses snort and stumble on the steep paths down from the upland hold. Hooves clatter on stone, send pebbles and dust cascading down the slopes. Men curse softly as they steady their mounts. The column stretches for miles, banners snapping in the thin, cold wind that blows from the east, tainted even here with the faint scent of smoke. Theoden King rides at the head, his white hair streaming from beneath his helm, his eyes bright with the strange light that has come upon him since his healing. Beside him, Eomer, his sister's son, scans the horizon, jaw clenched. They have seen the beacons. They have answered. They have ridden through the night, through the day, through the night again. They are tired, but they push on, driven by honor and by love. They do not know that they are late. Merry, perched behind a rider, clings to the saddle and peers between shoulders at the land unfolding below. He sees, far off, a faint smear of darkness where the city should gleam. He feels a coldness in his stomach that has nothing to do with the wind. "Do you think we will be in time?" he asks, voice barely audible above the thunder of hooves. The rider does not answer. His face is set. They reach the great stone road. Theoden gives the word, and the riders form into Eoreds, the long practice of their people turning chaos into order. Spears lower, shields are slung, horns are readied. The king lifts his hand. "Ride now," he says, voice carrying over the host. "Ride now to Gondor." They shout, a great cry that rolls like thunder. Then they ride. The plain of Anorion flies beneath them. Trees blur past. The wind tears at cloaks and hair. The ground trembles with the pounding of thousands of hooves. They ride as if the world's end is at their backs. When they crest the last rise before the Pelennor, they see the truth. Minas Tirith stands shrouded in smoke. Fire licks at its lower circles. The gate gapes like a broken tooth. Black flags flutter from the walls. The fields around it are a sea of dark armor and cruel banners, siege towers looming like iron trees. The Rohirrim rein in, the front ranks skidding to a halt, the rear pressing up behind in confusion. Horses toss their heads, snorting, sensing the fear in their riders. Merry's breath catches. "We are too late," he whispers. Theoden sits very still, his gaze fixed on the city. The light in his eyes does not dim, but it changes. It becomes something harder, deeper. "Too late to save her walls," he says. "Not too late to avenge her." He raises his sword. "Forth, and fear no darkness," he cries. "Spears shall be shaken, shields shall be splintered. A sword day, a red day, ere the sun rises. Ride now. Ride to ruin and the world's ending." The horns of Rohan sound. On the Pelennor, the hosts of Mordor turn. The charge of the Rohirrim is a thing of terrible beauty. Horses and men become one rolling wave of steel and flesh, crashing into the outer ranks of the enemy with a force that shatters lines and sends bodies flying. Orcs scream as hooves trample them into the churned earth. Southrons fall beneath long spears. For a moment, the Black Sea parts. The Rohirrim carve a bloody path toward the city. But the city they ride to is no longer the beleaguered fortress of the original tale. It is a half-taken prize, its lower circles already in the hands of the enemy. The Witch King has not been drawn away by the sudden appearance of Rohan. He has already done his work at the gate. He turns now from the fallen wizard, from the breach he has made, and looks outward. He feels the charge. He hears the horns. He smiles, though he has no lips. "Let them come," he says. He mounts again, this time upon the vast winged creature that is his other steed. Its membranous wings beat the air, its jaws dripping with foulness. Together they rise into the black sky. On the walls, men who had nearly broken at the fall of the gate now raise a ragged cheer. "Rohan!" they cry. "The Rohirrim have come!" Imrahil looks out and feels a fierce, sudden hope flare in his chest. "Theoden," he murmurs, "brave old king." He does not know that Theoden rides to a different doom. The battle that follows is not the one sung in the songs of the other world. There is no sudden reversal, no turning of the tide by the unexpected charge. There is only slaughter. The Rohirrim crash into the flanks of Mordor's army, and for a time they carve great swathes through it. Theoden's spear finds many foes. Eomer's sword rises and falls, red with blood. Merry clings and stabs when he can, his small blade finding gaps in armor. They kill many. They cannot kill enough. The enemy is too numerous, too entrenched. Siege towers and engines now serve as fortresses, their crews turning them into makeshift strongholds that the riders must circle or avoid. Orcs pour from trenches, and pits dug hastily in the night, swarming the horses' legs. Haradrim archers on the backs of Mumakil rain death from above. The Witch King descends. He falls upon the King of Rohan like a shadow. Theoden's horse rears and falls, crushed by the winged beast. The king is thrown, pinned beneath the weight of his mount. His shield shatters. His breath comes in gasps. In the true tale, a shield maiden and a halfling stand between the Lord of the Nazgul and his prey. In this darker turn, there is only chaos. Eowyn is not here. She remained in Dunharrow, bound by duty and despair. Merry is far away, lost in the press of battle, his pony long since slain beneath him. Theoden looks up and sees the shadow descending. He feels fear, but also a strange peace. He has come to the end he foresaw when he spoke of ruin and the world's ending. He has no regret. The Witch King raises his mace. "No living man may hinder me," he says. There is no answer. The blow falls. Theoden, king of Rohan, dies upon the Pelennor, unavenged. Eomer sees the banner fall. He hears the cry go up that the king is dead. Rage and grief rip through him like fire. He spurs his horse, hacking his way toward the fallen standard, but a wall of orcs and Southrons closes around him. For a moment, he vanishes in the press. The Rohirrim falter. They had ridden to save a city. Now they find themselves fighting for their own survival in a killing ground between the walls and the encircling armies of Mordor. Their charge, glorious and terrible, slows, stalls, fragments into knots of desperate men and horses. On the walls, the cheers die. Imrahil watches as the green banner of Rohan dips and disappears. He sees the winged shadow wheeling above the field, unchallenged. He hears the renewed howls of the enemy at the gate, emboldened by the fall of the king. Hope, which had flared so briefly, dims again. In the sixth circle, Pippin hears the distant horns and feels, for a heartbeat, a surge of joy. "Rohan," he whispers. "They came." Then the sound is drowned by nearer screams. The enemy has reached the inner gates. Trolls pound at the doors between circles, their massive fists cracking wood and stone. Orcs swarm through alleys and side passages, some guided by treachery, others simply by the scent of fear. Fire spreads along the lower levels, licking upward. Pippin looks at Faramir, at Beregond, at the healers who work with frantic hands. He feels very small. "What can I do?" he asks. Beregond meets his eyes. The guard's face is streaked with soot and sweat, his sword arm trembling from earlier exertions. He has already broken his oath once. He will break it again if he must. "You can fight," he says simply. "You can stand." Pippin swallows. He nods. He takes up his sword. In the Black Lands, the ring-bearer falls. Frodo's legs give way beneath him. He drops to his knees on the ashen slope, his hands sinking into the dust. The air is thick and hot, hard to breathe. His vision blurs. The ring is a weight that drags his head down, a voice that fills his mind. "Sam," he whispers, "I cannot." Sam drops beside him, chest heaving. His own body is at the edge of its strength, but his spirit has not yet broken. He looks at Frodo and sees, with a clarity that cuts him, that his master is near the end of all endurance. He thinks of the Shire, of green fields and warm kitchens, of Rosie's laugh and old Gaffer's grumble. He thinks of Gandalf's fireworks. He thinks of a world where all that is more than a memory. "Mr. Frodo," he says, voice hoarse but steady, "I cannot carry it for you, but I can carry you." He does as he did in the world we know. He hauls Frodo onto his back, staggering under the added weight, and begins to climb. But the world below them is not the same. Minas Tirith burns. The Eye, having poured its malice into the fall of the city, turns at last, like a beast lifting its head from one kill to scent another. It feels the movement near its very doorstep. It feels the ring. Its gaze swings toward the mountain. On the Pelennor, a shudder runs through the hosts of Mordor. Some orcs cry out and fall to their knees, clutching at their heads as the will of their master tightens. Others howl with renewed ferocity, driven by his exultation. In the city, men stagger as a wave of dread passes over them. Pippin feels it like a physical weight pressing him down. Beregond gasps, knuckles whitening on his sword hilt. Far above, in the ashen air of Mordor, Sam stumbles. The Eye has found them. Frodo cries out, a wordless sound of terror and longing. The ring upon his breast burns like a brand. For a moment, he clutches at it, fingers digging into the chain, as if he would tear it away or press it deeper into his flesh. Sam feels him shift, feels the sudden, desperate strength in that movement. He staggers, loses his grip. Frodo slips from his back and falls to the ash. The ring-bearer lies there, panting, staring up at the invisible gaze that pins him. He feels naked, exposed, every thought laid bare. The ring pulses. "Take me," it whispers. "Take me. I am yours." Frodo's hand moves toward it. Sam sees. "No," he says, and the word is a sob and a command all at once. "Do not, Mr. Frodo. Do not." Frodo turns his head. His eyes are wide and wild, filled with fear and something else. "It is too strong," he whispers. "I am too small." Sam crawls to him. He takes Frodo's hand in both of his, holding it away from the chain with all his strength. Tears carve clean tracks through the grime on his face. "You are the biggest person I know," he says. "Bigger than wizards and kings and all their high talk. You got this far. You can go a step more." The eye bears down. In Minas Tirith, the inner gate cracks. Imrahil rallies his men for another stand in the fifth circle. The streets are choked with rubble and corpses. Smoke hangs in the air, making every breath a labor. The prince's armor is dented, his cloak torn, his sword nicked. His horse is dead beneath him. He fights now on foot. "Hold," he shouts, "for the White City, for Gondor." They hold for a time. In the houses of healing, Ioreth bends over a boy with a crushed leg. Her hands steady despite the tremor in her heart. She hears the distant crashes, the nearer screams, the muttered prayers. She hears, faintly, the sound of a horn that is not of Rohan, nor of Gondor. It is a horn of the dead. On the river, Anduin, black sails billow. The corsair fleet glides toward the Harland, oars dipping in unison. Upon the lead ship, a tall figure in a grey cloak stands at the prow, his hand upon the hilt of a sword that is more than a blade. Beside him, an elf and a dwarf watch the smoke rising from Minas Tirith. Aragorn, son of Arathorn, does not smile when he sees the city's plight. His jaw tightens, his eyes darken, but there is no surprise there. He has seen the same visions that tormented Denethor, though he read them differently. He knew they might be late. "We are not in time to prevent its fall," Legolas says quietly. "We may yet prevent its utter ruin." Gimli spits into the water. "Then let us not waste breath talking," he growls. "Let us get to the killing." Behind them, invisible to mortal eyes, the grey host of the dead presses forward, drawn by the oath they must fulfill. Their presence chills the very air. The living sailors who once crewed these ships lie in heaps below deck, felled by fear. The Black Fleet slides into the quays of the Harland. Upon the Pelennor, both friend and foe turn to look. Orcs jeer, thinking these are their allies come to complete the encirclement. Men of Gondor, those few still holding the walls, sag in despair, seeing what they think are reinforcements for the enemy. Then the banner unfurls. Not the black serpent of Umbar, but a standard of sable bearing a white tree, 7 stars, and a crown. It snaps out in the wind, defiant against the smoke-dark sky. A murmur runs through the ranks of Gondor's defenders. A name, half forgotten, whispered in tales and dreams, rises to their lips. Isildur's heir. Imrahil breathes, blood and sweat streaking his face. "The king." Aragorn draws Andúril. "Now," he says. The dead go forth. They sweep across the Pelennor like a pale tide, their forms half seen, their faces twisted with ancient oaths. Orcs scream and break before them. weapons falling from nerveless fingers. Southrons cry out in terror, their great beasts rearing and trumpeting in panic. The tide of Mordor's army falters. For the first time since dawn, the balance of the battle shifts. Yoma, bloodied and half-mad with grief, feels the change before he sees its source. He cuts down an orc, turns, and sees the grey wave rolling toward him, the black banner of the king above it. "Aragorn," he says, incredulous. He laughs then, a wild, harsh sound, and raises his sword. "Westu, Aragorn Hal," he cries. "Now we take our vengeance." The Rohirrim rally. On the walls, men who had been on the verge of fleeing turn back to the battlements. They shout hoarsely, voices cracking, as they see the enemy's lines in disarray. Some weep openly. In the houses of healing, Ioreth straightens. "The king," she whispers. "The king has come." Pippin, standing guard over Faramir with Beregond, hears the renewed cries and feels a flicker of hope. "Gandalf," he murmurs, then corrects himself with a stab of pain. "Aragorn." He does not yet know what it will cost. In Mordor, upon the slopes of Orodruin, Sam hauls Frodo to his feet again. The eye is upon them, but it is no longer undivided. It has turned, sensing the arrival of a new threat upon the Pelennor, the stirring of an old power in the hands of Isildur's heir. It strains, seeking to grasp both at once. The ring at its doorstep, the king at its gate. No will, however vast, is infinite. The pressure on Frodo's mind lessens by a hair's breadth. It is enough. He staggers forward. 1 step, 2, 3. Sam is at his side, one hand on his arm, the other gripping the rock. They climb, inch by inch, while the world below burns and battles. In Minas Tirith, the enemy is driven back from some of the inner gates as panic spreads among their ranks. The dead sweep through them, leaving no corpses, only empty armor and dropped blades. Aragorn and his companions press forward, rallying what remains of the city's defenders. But this is no clean rescue. The lower circles are already lost. Fire consumes whole streets. The gate cannot be repaired in any haste. The dead lie in heaps, and the living are scattered and leaderless. Gandalf is gone. Denethor is ash. Aragorn feels the weight of it all as he fights his way up through the circles. He sees burned houses, weeping children, men who have thrown down their arms and sit staring into nothing. He sees the white tree, still dead, its branches stark against the smoke. He reaches the court of the fountain and stands for a moment, chest heaving, sword dripping. "This is the city I was born to rule," he says softly. There is no triumph in his voice, only a grim acceptance. "I come to it in ruin." Legolas lays a hand on his arm. "You come to it," he says. "That is not nothing." Gimli snorts. "There will be time for speeches later," he says. "If we live." Aragorn nods once. He turns toward the houses of healing. He finds Faramir upon his bed, pale and still, his fever raging. Pippin stands nearby, eyes red, sword still in his hand. Beregond, exhausted, leans against a wall, helm in his hands. "Strider," Pippin says, relief and grief tangled in his voice. "Gandalf!" "I know," Aragorn says. His eyes flick briefly, pain shadowing them, but he does not falter. There is no time to mourn him now. He bends over Faramir, his hands gentle as he touches the young man's brow. He feels the heat, the poison burning in the veins. He feels too the thread of life that still runs, thin but unbroken. "The hands of the king are the hands of a healer," Ioreth whispers, clutching at her apron. Aragorn smiles faintly. "So they say," he murmurs. He calls for Athelas. He crushes the leaves in his hands, breathes in their scent, lets it fill the room. He speaks softly, words in a language older than the city, older than the white tree. The air seems to clear. The sounds of battle outside recede for a moment. Faramir stirs, his eyes open, unfocused at first, then sharpening on the face above him. "My lord," he whispers, "you called me. I come." Aragorn exhales slowly. "Rest now, steward of Gondor," he says. "Your city still has need of you." Faramir's eyes close again, but this time his breathing is easier. Hope, that stubborn thing, takes root once more. On the Pelennor, the battle turns fully as the dead sweep through the last organized resistance of the enemy outside the walls. Orcs flee toward the river, only to find their escape cut off. Southrons are dragged from their saddles. The Mumakil, driven mad by fear, trample friend and foe alike before they are brought down. The Witch King feels the shift. He has feasted on fear, exulted in the fall of the gate, broken the White Wizard, and slain a king. Now, for the first time this day, he feels something like a check. The King of Gondor has come, and he bears a sword that glows with a light the Nazgul have long feared. He turns his winged steed toward the city again. He does not go to the field. He goes to the walls. Aragorn, having brought what healing he can, steps out into the court of the fountain once more. He looks up at the sky, at the swirling shadows, at the distant red glow on the horizon that marks Orodruin's fires. He feels the weight of the ring's fate like a pressure in his bones. He knows, though he has not seen, that somewhere beyond sight, two small figures are climbing. He has staked everything on that hope. He must buy them time. "Gandalf should have been here," he says quietly. "He is here," Legolas replies, looking at the broken staff that has been brought up from the gate. "In what you do." Aragorn lifts Andúril. "Then let us be worthy of him." The Witch King stoops. He falls upon the upper circles like a thunderbolt, his winged steed's talons tearing into stone, its beak snapping at men on the walls. Its shriek is a blade of sound that cuts courage from hearts. The Nazgul's presence is a weight, a suffocating darkness. "Come forth, heir of Isildur," he calls. "You would play at kingship. Come then, and die." Aragorn steps onto the wall. He stands alone for a moment, a tall figure in grey and mail, his dark hair stirred by a foul wind. Andúril burns in his hand with a cold, clear light. Behind him, men look up and feel something in them straighten. "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn," he says, "and I do not fear you." The Witch King laughs, a sound that makes the stones tremble. "You should," he says. They meet. Steel and sorcery clash upon the wall. The Witch King's blade is black fire, its touch a death that goes beyond flesh. Andúril is the flame of the west, reforged from the shards of Narsil, carrying in its steel the memory of a cut that once brought Sauron low. Their meetings sent sparks and shadows flying. Aragorn moves with a grace born of long years in the wild, of battles fought in secret places. He parries, he dodges, he strikes. The Witch King is a storm. His blows heavy and relentless, his presence sapping strength. Below, men fight and die, unaware that above them history balances on a blade's edge. In Mordor, Frodo and Sam reach the Sammath now. The entrance to the cracks of doom gapes before them, a jagged wound in the mountain's side. Heat blasts from within, a furnace wind that sears their lungs. The roar of molten stone echoes from the depths. Frodo staggers inside. The chamber is vast, lit by the red glow of the fire far below. A narrow path leads out over the chasm to a small ledge. The ring weighs upon Frodo's breast, its voice a constant whisper now, not in words, but in pure, aching desire. Sam stops at the threshold, lungs burning, legs shaking. "Go on, Mr. Frodo," he says. "End it." Frodo walks out onto the ledge. He stands at the brink, looking down into the fire. The heat blurs his vision, makes the air dance. Sweat streams down his face. His hand rises, trembling, to the chain around his neck. The eye is upon him. In Minas Tirith, Aragorn falters. The Witch King's blade grazes his side. Not a deep cut, but enough. Numbness spreads from the wound, a cold that seeps into his flesh. He staggers, dropping to one knee. The Nazgul looms over him. "You will fall as your forefather fell," the Witch King says. "You will fail as he failed. The ring returns to its master. All your striving is in vain." Aragorn looks up, teeth gritted against the pain. He sees, for an instant, a vision. A man in a high helm, standing over a fallen Dark Lord, a golden ring in his hand. He sees that man turn away from the fire. "I am not Isildur," he says. He drives Andúril upward. The blade strikes the Witch King's mail. There is a scream, a sound that tears the air, as if something not meant for this world has been wounded. The Nazgul reels back, black smoke streaming from the rent. It is not the death blow of prophecy. No woman stands here, no halfling with a barrow blade. The Witch King cannot be slain by the hand of man alone, but he can be hurt. He shrieks, more in rage than pain. On the brink of the fire, Frodo hesitates. The ring is heavy in his palm now, the chain broken, the gold warm against his skin. He holds it over the chasm, his hand shaking. He hears the whisper, "Mine." He hears another voice, faint and far, "Frodo." "Sam," he says. He closes his hand. "I will not do this deed," he says, and his voice is not his own. It is stronger, colder. "The ring is mine." In that moment, all the careful plans, all the desperate courage, all the sacrifices of the West come to a point and break. Sam cries out, a sound of pure despair. He stumbles forward, reaching, but he is too late. Frodo turns, eyes blazing with an inner light that is not good. The ring gleams upon his finger for an instant, then vanishes as he puts it on. He disappears. The eye explodes with exultation. In Minas Tirith, the Witch King straightens. The wound given by Andúril smokes and hisses, but he laughs, a sound of terrible triumph. "It is done," he says. "He has taken it. You have lost." Aragorn feels it like a blow to the heart. He does not know the details, cannot see the mountain or the fire, but he feels the shift in the world, the sudden tightening of a net. He feels the ring's will flare, no longer resisted by the small, stubborn strength that had carried it so far. He staggers. The Witch King raises his blade. "Die, last hope of the West," he says. He strikes. Andúril rises to parry, but the force of the blow drives Aragorn back against the parapet. Stone cracks beneath his weight. His grip slips. The black blade comes again, and this time it finds flesh. Aragorn falls. On the wall, men cry out. Below, the battle falters. The banner of the king, newly raised, dips. In the Samath Nar, an invisible figure stands upon the brink, the ring upon his hand, his mind a storm of power and desire. Frodo feels the world open before him, all its fears, all its hopes, all its lives. He could save it. He could rule it. He could end its wars, its pain. He could. Behind him, something small and broken and mad scrabbles on the rock. Gollum has followed, unseen, driven by a hunger older than any plan of wizards. He lunges, teeth bared, hands grasping. He finds Frodo by the sound of his breath, by the scent of him, by the pull of the ring. He bites. Frodo screams, suddenly visible as the ring is torn from his finger along with flesh. Blood spatters the rock. Gollum dances back, the ring clutched in his hands, his eyes blazing with insane joy. "Precious!" he cries. "Precious is mine again!" He capers on the brink, heedless of the drop. Sam, half blinded by pain and smoke, reaches out. "No!" he shouts. "Stop, you fool!" Gollum slips. In the true tale, he falls into the fire, taking the ring with him, ending the long war in a moment of mad chance. In this darker path, the eye is fully upon them. Sauron has learned from long ages of loss. His will lashes out. Gollum does not fall. He hangs, scrabbling, one hand clutching the edge of the rock, the other still wrapped around the ring. His feet kick over the chasm, his eyes wide and wild. "Help!" he whimpers. "Help us, Precious!" Sam stands frozen. If he strikes Gollum's hand, if he lets him fall, the ring will go into the fire. It will end. But Frodo lies behind him, bleeding, his hand maimed, his eyes wide with shock and loss. The ring was his burden. It has been stolen from him. Sam's heart tears. On the wall of Minas Tirith, Aragorn bleeds. He lies upon the stone, Andúril fallen from his hand. The Witch King looms over him, but he does not strike again immediately. He savours this. Below, the hosts of Mordor rally, their fear of the dead lessened as their master's joy floods them. In the houses of healing, Faramir stirs, sensing something wrong. Pippin grips his sword tighter, though he does not know why. Beregond looks toward the window, toward the sound of distant shrieks. On the Pelennor, Éomer fights like a man already dead, his grief for Theoden and now perhaps for Aragorn making him a terrible foe. The dead still sweep across the field, but their time is running out. Their oath is nearly fulfilled. They feel the pull to depart. In the Samath now, Sam chooses. He steps forward, he strikes. His blade, small and plain, comes down upon Gollum's wrist. Bone and sinew part. The creature screams, a sound of pure agony and loss. The severed hand, still clutching the ring, tumbles. For a heartbeat, it hangs in the air, spinning, the gold flashing in the red light. Then it falls into the fire. The ring melts. The eye screams. In Minas Tirith, the Witch King stiffens. His triumph turns to shock, then to fury, then to something like fear. The foundations of his being tremble as the power that bound him, that sustained him, begins to unravel. He looks east, toward the mountain, and sees, in some dark inner sight, the unmaking of his master's greatest work. "No," he says. Aragorn, half conscious, feels the shift too. He feels the weight lift, the pressure ease. He feels, through the haze of pain, a surge of wild, incredulous hope. On the Pelennor, towers sway. The great engines of war crack and topple. Orcs drop their weapons, clawing at their heads as the will that drove them falters. The dead, their oath fulfilled in that instant of the ring's destruction, begin to fade, their forms dissolving into the air like mist in sunlight. In Mordor, the mountain convulses. The fires of Orodruin erupt, lava surging, rock cracking. The chamber of the cracks of doom shakes. The ledge upon which Sam stands buckles. He falls to his knees, grabbing at Frodo. Gollum, handless, wails upon the brink as the fire roars below. The ring is gone. His Precious is no more. He stares down into the chasm as if he might will it back into being. "Gone," he sobs. "Gone, gone, gone." The ceiling cracks. A great slab of rock falls. It strikes Gollum and knocks him at last into the fire. He vanishes in a gout of flame and smoke. Sam drags Frodo toward the exit as the mountain comes apart around them. In Minas Tirith, the Witch King screams. The sound is like the tearing of the sky. His form flickers, his edges fray. The wound given by Anduril flares with white fire. He staggers, his winged steed thrashing and shrieking. Aragorn pushes himself up on one elbow. "For Gondor," he whispers. "For Frodo." He seizes Anduril and thrusts. The blade passes through the Nazgul's form, not cutting flesh, but slicing something deeper. The Witch King's crown falls, clattering upon the stone. His cloak collapses, empty. A wind rises, cold and clean, sweeping the tatters away. The Lord of the Nazgul is no more. Below, the hosts of Mordor break. Without the Eye's full will to hold them, without the terror of the Witch King to drive them, they are only orcs and men and beasts, and they are outmatched by the wrath that falls upon them. The Rohirrim, the men of Gondor, the grey host in its last moments of existence, all crash into them with a fury sharpened by grief. The battle becomes a rout. On the walls, men laugh and weep. Some fall to their knees, others embrace, others simply stare, stunned. The black banners of Mordor topple. The sun, long veiled, pierces the thinning clouds in a shaft of pale light that falls upon the white tower. In the houses of healing, Eoreth sinks onto a bench, tears on her cheeks. "It is over," she whispers. "It is over." Pippin does not quite believe it. He grips Beregond's arm. "Did we win?" he asks. Beregond looks around at the wounded, at the smoke still rising from the lower circles, at the distant sounds of pursuit and slaughter. "We are alive," he says. "That is something." Aragorn stands upon the wall, swaying. Blood runs from his side, soaking his tunic. His face is pale beneath the grime. Legolas and Gimli are at his shoulders in an instant, steadying him. "You did it," Gimli says. "By Mahal, you did it." Aragorn shakes his head. "Not I," he says. He looks east, toward the distant plume of smoke rising from Orodruin. "Frodo." He does not know if the ring-bearer lives. He does not know if Sam does. He knows only that they did what no one else could. The cost begins to unroll before him like a scroll. Minas Tirith stands, but it is scarred. The great gate lies in ruins. The lower circles are half burned, their people dead or scattered. The steward is gone, replaced by a young man who has only just risen from his sickbed. Gandalf, guide and friend, is no more. Rohan has lost its king. Theoden's body lies upon the field, his banner torn, his horse dead beside him. Eomer stands over him, sword planted in the earth, head bowed. Around them, Rohirrim move among the fallen, seeking friends, finding corpses. Eowyn, when she comes from Dunharrow with the remaining folk, will find her uncle cold. She will not have the memory of standing against the Witch King, of defying prophecy. Her grief will be simpler and perhaps heavier. In Mordor, upon a slope of ash, two small figures lie side by side as the mountain spews fire above them. Sam's arm is flung across Frodo's chest. Both are still. Ash and cinders rain down upon them. The air is a furnace. The ground shakes. They do not move. The eagles come, as they did before, sent by a last desperate plea from those who still remember older, higher powers. Gwaihir and his kin swoop through the smoke, their great wings beating back the ash. They find the hobbits, lift them, bear them away from the collapsing mountain. They live, but something in Frodo has been burned beyond healing. When he wakes in Minas Tirith, it is in a city that is both triumphant and grieving. The banners of the West fly from the repaired walls. The people cheer as Aragorn is crowned, as Faramir kneels and yields the white rod, as Yoma is hailed king of Rohan. They sing of victory, of the fall of Sauron, of the dawn of a new age. Frodo smiles, but the smile does not reach his eyes. He walks through streets still blackened by fire, past houses that are only shells, past people who limp or lean on crutches. He sees children playing in rubble. He sees a woman sitting alone on a doorstep, staring at nothing. He sees the place where the gate once stood, now a gaping wound in the city's face, ringed with scaffolding and stonecutters. He sees the spot where Gandalf fell. He does not go near it. Aragorn sits upon the throne of Gondor at last. The white tree, newly planted from a sapling found in the high places, grows in the court of the fountain. Its leaves are small but bright, a fragile green against the white stone. He rules wisely. He heals where he can. He makes peace with Rohan, with the south, with the north. He sends word to the Shire, grants it protection. He marries Arwen, and their joy is real, if shadowed. But his reign begins under a cloud. He is the king who came to a city half ruined. The king crowned in the wake of Gandalf's death. The king whose first act was not to lead a march to the Black Gate in defiance, as in the other tale, but to rebuild walls and bury the dead. There are whispers, soft at first, then louder in the markets and taverns. If he had come sooner, if Rohan had ridden faster, if the steward had not despaired. Faramir hears them. He does not repeat them. He stands beside his king with quiet loyalty, his own burden heavy. He must rebuild a house that ended in fire. He must govern a people who have seen their lord burn and their wizard fall. At night, he dreams of his father's face in the flames. Eomer rides back to Rohan with fewer riders than he brought. He carries Theoden's body, and with it the weight of a kingship he did not expect to bear so soon. He must lead a people who have lost their king in a foreign field, whose shield maidens stayed behind, and now walks the halls of Meduseld with no great deed to her name, only a gnawing sense of being left out of the great story. She will find other paths. She will meet Faramir in the years to come, not in the houses of healing, but in councils and embassies. Their love will grow slower, perhaps, less bound up in shared wounds. It may be no less deep. In the Shire, years later, children will sit at Frodo's feet and listen to his tales. He will tell them of fireworks and trolls, of Rivendell and Lothlorien, of Ents and eagles. He will not often speak of Minas Tirith's fall, of the day Gandalf died, of the moment he claimed the ring for his own. When he does, his voice will go quiet. Sam will watch him with worried eyes. He will have his own burdens, a family to raise, a garden to tend, a mayor's duties to fulfill. He will be happy in a way that is solid and earthy. But part of him will always be on that ledge, sword in hand, watching a small gold circle fall. "Did we do right, Mr. Frodo?" he will ask once, when the night is very still and the pain in his master's shoulder is bad. Frodo will look at him, eyes full of years and miles. "We did what we could," he will say. "Others paid for what we could not. Gandalf will not come to take him to the west. The straight road is not opened so easily. The Valar do not intervene lightly. Without Gandalf's voice to plead for Frodo, without his presence to guide the hobbits at the end, the path to the Undying Lands remains, for now, closed to mortals. Frodo will stay. He will grow older, his wounds never fully healing, his nights often restless. He will watch the world change, see men spread and elves depart. hear of distant wars and nearer troubles. He will write his book. He will pass it to Sam. He will die in the Shire under a sky full of stars, his hand in Sam's, the sound of the party tree's leaves in his ears. In Minas Tirith, years after the war, a child will wander up to the rebuilt gate. It stands tall again, wrought of steel and mithril, stronger than before, but the stones around its base bear scars that no mason has smoothed away. Blackened patches where fire once licked, cracks filled but not hidden where Grond's blows fell. The child will trace those marks with small fingers. "Father," he will say, "is it true that the enemy came in here, all the way in?" His father, a guardsman with a limp, will nod. "Aye," he will say, "we fought them in the streets. We lost many. We nearly lost all. But we won," the child will say, as if that is the only part that matters. The man will look up at the white tower, at the white tree, at the banners snapping in the clean wind. He will think of the friends he buried, of the wizard whose light once shone from that tower, of the king who almost died upon the wall. "We did," he will say, "in the end." The child will smile and run off, his laughter echoing in the courtyard. The man will stand a moment longer, his hand resting on the scarred stone, feeling the roughness beneath his palm. He will close his eyes and hear again the crash of the gate, the scream of the Nazgul, the last flare of a white light that did not come again. Then he will turn and walk back into the city that still stands, whole and broken, saved and scarred, its future stretching before it like a road whose end cannot yet be seen. Far away in the west, beyond sight and story, a white ship waits at a grey shore that no mortal now will tread. The sea is very quiet,